Okay, good evening to all. We will be continuing Be'ezer Hashem tonight with the bracha of Shema Koleinu. So we had said in past that we could split up all the 19 brachos between 3, 6, 6, 1, and 3. 3, 6, 6, 1, 3. First three are the three that are of praise. We come to a Kadosh Baruch Hu before we begin to request and beseech. We have the three of praise. Then we've got the next 13. The first 6 are the 6 of beseeching, requesting our daily needs. The next 6 are more of the future, Mashiach, Binyan HaMikdash, the temple, judges should, in the future, Kadosh Baruch Hu, God should bring them back to how they used to be, to the same righteousness, the reward for the tzaddikim. And then we come to, at the finality of that group, the middle, bakashos, the request, 6, 6 is 1. There's one more, and that's Shema Koleinu. Take all our tefillos, all our bakashos, and God, listen to our voice. And then from there we're going to go on to the last 3, which are when we depart from our speech, our conversation with God, and it's called hoda'ah, the things, but reality it's more the departure brachos. So let's begin. We're up to the bracha of Shema Koleinu, that last bracha of the bakashos. So of course, the idea of Shema Koleinu, it's a bakashos, a techina. I'm reading here from the Sefer-based tefillah. It's requesting that God should accept our tefillos b'rotzon, willingly, with interest. And in the corresponding bracha, in the Torah that we're up to, where we've got 4 more birds left, Shema Koleinu and the last 3. The 4th last bird, both in the list in Shemini as well as in the list in Re'eh, is the chasidah. Beautiful, a beautiful bird, the chasidah. Now, the chasidah was forever identified as the stork. The stork. Now, there's different storks. There's white and the black one. But because of what Chazal, the rabbis have told us, they identify different characteristics of this bird for us in different places. It's either in the psukim or in different divrei Chazal, in the Gemara. So, it's taken to be the white stork. So let's take a look at 3 different points that Rav David in the Sefer, he brings to the surface. There's 3 different ideas that he would like to bring out that really are essential to the acceptance of our tefillos before God, acceptance of our prayers before God, and he brings 3 different essential needs for that to come about properly to the highest level. And from there, he'll show how these 3 are found in the character of the stork. It's a beautiful correlation here. Number 1, we know that it's very important when we pray to pray betzibur, to pray together in community. The Gemara says, "Ein tefilloso shel adam nishma'as." Man's prayer is not heard, elim kein mesim nafshu b'kapo, unless he places his soul with his hands. Literally, how they used to pray with their hands up to God. But it means that he has his full awareness of what he's asking, and his heart is there together with his mind and his body. So Gemara says, but Shmuel said that even though libam lo nachon imo, even though the person's heart is not there with him as he prays, afal pikin, even so, v'hu rachum yechaper avon, God will atone, meaning through prayer. So which one is it? Does it require man's heart or not? Lo kasha b'yachad b'tzibur. The Gemara says the difference is whether he's by himself or it's together with a tzibur, 10 others in a minyan. With the tzibur, there's such a strong power and energy that comes from that is able to affect even if the concentration is not there. It's just the words are coming out of his mouth, but he doesn't have the full concentration. And there are different chazals. We see clearly all the big milah, the great advantage of having asara, having 10, the minyan. By having the minyan, you allow your friend also for his prayers to go up to heaven, and in turn, that allows your prayer to go up in heaven. So you see, this idea of Shema Koleinu is chesed, kindness. Coming together as a community, giving strength to others, giving their prayers ability to go up because you're coming together with them as a minyan, as Kadosh Baruch Hu set up in this world. You need a minyan to go together to have the fullness of acceptance of the prayer, and in turn, that chesed bounces back on yourself, and you're able to be rewarded as well. So that's the first idea, chesed, kindness, of tzibur specifically, through community. Second idea, purity. You come to prayer, and it's clear in Chazal that the more pure the man is, as far as the ritual purity and impurity, the more pure in that way, the greater his tefillah is able to have acceptance. And what brings us out the most? Tefillah. Right? Dunking in the mikvah, in the 40 saw, in the water. And we know, we even see in our own day and age, we have communities of men, the chasidim, that they're careful with this, to go before the prayer in the morning, almost every morning really, they do it, and they bring upon themselves this purity of the water, and whether we do it or not, but it was clear in the Gemara that in people that have the impurity, it was originally actually an enactment that they have to, it's a requirement to go into the water to purify themselves before they pray. But okay, so we don't follow that anymore. The Gemara tells us that was a nisbatel. It was too difficult, and they said that it's not necessary anymore. But the idea of purity in tefillah is clear. Purity specifically through the ritual waters, the waters of the mikvah. And the third idea that Rav David brings out is clear, right? We have prayer during the week. We pray our 19 brachos. We have prayer on the Shabbat. And on Shabbos, we've got 7 brachos. And it's different. It's attuned to the time and to the day, as well as Yom Tov and the Chag and the festival. We've got different. It has special prayers for that time. Every time, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, every specific time has got their prayers that are attuned to that time specifically. And he says, let's turn now to the bird, that when we say our prayer, we are actually, as he's been saying, we're giving sustenance to that corresponding idea and creation in the world. And the bird of the chasidah, Chazal tells us, why is it called the chasidah? It's from the language of chesed. What does the Gemara say in Chulin? Chesed, it does kindness specifically im chavruseha, with its fellow birds. So the white stork is found to do that. It does chesed together with other storks. The second one, the Gemara tells us that the nature of this bird is to immerse itself in the water after mating. What do you see? That it's careful in immersing in the symbolization of purification. And the third one is the pasuk in Yirmiyahu, which we will explore soon. It says, Kadosh Baruch Hu, God says, Gam chasidah b'shamayim yodah modeh. It's one of the 3 birds. Also the chasidah, it's the first of that list. Also the chasidah, the stork in heaven, knows its specific times, and you, the Jewish people, don't even know me. That's why God is giving rebuke in that pasuk. But the beginning of the rebuke is the chasidah is singled out for being very precise in precise and also understanding of the specific times that it lives. Awareness of time. So let's just take a look at the actual observation of the stork, and we'll find these 3 ideas very clearly. Let's go to the first one, the chesed. It does chesed for other storks. So observation shows that it's singled out for sharing with other storks. It regurgitates the food sometimes in order to give to others, that there are other storks that don't have it. Sometimes there's chicks that need it. If there's chicks, small little chicks which are nesting in a close proximity to them, and they need food, and they'll regurgitate the food within them. They take from within them to give to others, and it's singled out over here. they make, here's betzibur, the idea of minyan betzibur, where this is a symbolization of community. They actually make colonies together. How do they do that? Unlike other birds, where do they usually put their nest? Up in the treetops, single branches. Over here, they go to rooftops, cliff platforms. Other storks are able to come together with them because there's large area for them to nest together. And they show low aggression towards other types of storks as compared to other large birds which are more oppressive. In migration, an interesting point, they adjust their speed, their pace to remain together with the group more than other birds. So again, you see the community aspect symbolization here, which corresponds to the idea of tzibur, which is essential, very essential to the Shema Koleinu. God should hear our voice. Let's go to the second point. Do we see, does our observations show immersion, that they immerse themselves in water? And yes, they actively seek immersion, as much as they're not waterfowl. So they're not in the water all the time, and this actually shows the point. They live near the water, so it's more noticeable that they go out of their way to go into the water. They repetitively, deliberately, they're going to bathe. The Gemara happens to say specifically after mating, which is harder to observe that specifically, but it is observed that they go to clean themselves afterwards. So the idea of the symbolization of purifying themselves through the waters, which is clearly documented and brought out for the essential acceptance of our tefillah, of our prayer, is symbolized right there by the stork. The third point, the awareness of time and season from the pasuk in Yirmiyah. They migrate precisely. If you research this, you'll find this. They migrate nearly with the identical calendar day from year to year. Now, as we'll see in a second, they do adjust the departure based on the length of the day and the solar position. Others, birds they also adjust it, but based on the standard weather, cold, hot, rainy, all that stuff. But here, it's a much more precise adjustment. And entire populations, they move together in waves, in short windows of time. So it's literally to the moment, to the preciseness. And that's the symbolization of getting the prayer correct, based on the time. The Shabbos gets it, during the week gets it, the festival, the Chag gets it. Each festival gets their specific one. That's how you symbolize it. So when we say this prayer, Shema Koleinu, we understand that we're actually giving a level of existence through the hashpa'ah that comes from our saying the prayer is actually able to give to that creation that God made, the stork, the white stork. All right, let's move on. And one interesting point. Now, these are the non-kosher birds. The stork is from the non-kosher birds. So the question's asked, right? The non-kosher birds are the more symbolizing the evil forces that God placed in the world. So why is the chasidah, which seems so beautiful, gives chesed with others and such a high level, why is it in the non-kosher? And the way that many explain is that the chasidah, as much as it does chesed, but the chesed is kept to within its own storks. Chasidah im chavrutaha, with its friends, with its own speech. And that is not correct. There's good in doing chesed, but it requires that you open up to all. You gotta be open-minded to everyone. Of course, everyone, unless there's literal evil there. So, whenever we say our prayer, we're actually giving tikkun to this idea. We've had a number of times, these birds are not necessarily, sometimes they're in almost like opposition to the idea of the bracha. But what we're doing is we're saying the bracha and we're bringing tikkun, fixing this problem that exists in the world. And that's the chasidah. Potentially, we could say that we're fixing that issue, that specific issue. We're going to say our tefillah Shema Koleinu, but it should go to affect all those that are appropriately should be affected, not just our own closed-minded ideas and friends. Let's move on to the next bracha. The next bracha, so now we just closed with the brachos of beseeching, praying, and we begin the last group, the last three. Now, the first of the last three is ritzei, avodah. What is the basic idea of the avodah, that bracha? We're asking God that God should bring us back to have the Beit HaMikdash, to have the korbanos, the sacrifices in the Beit HaMikdash, and God should accept those korbanos, those sacrifices, biratzon. Now, of course, when they said this blessing in the temple, and when we will say it in the temple, we're not asking to bring us back to the temple. We have it, but after the bring the sacrifice, they still say the blessing. God, please take up the sacrifice biratzon. And this one, we won't spend so much time on it. But what's the next bird that corresponds? Ha'anafa, the anafa bird. Now, what is the anafa bird? So, Rashi brings from Chazal and Chulin, it's the daya ragzanis. The daya ragzanis. Now here they translate the daya ragzanis. Let's find it. The hot-tempered daya. And Rashi actually gives a identification here. The Hiron. So what does this have to do with the bracha of Ritzei? So Rav David says, very small short point over here, that it's known, right, obviously anger, kas, and rotzon, and interest, acceptance, are opposites. The Mishnah says, Noach lechos, v'noach l'ritzos, kosher lechos, v'kosher l'ritzos. The Mishnah discusses these two characteristics as opposites, ritzui, acceptance, and kas, anger. Now, we find throughout the verses we're discussing the sacrifice, many times, right, the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be rotzeh, rotzon, to accept it, acceptance. V'lakachas rotzom yadchem, yiu l'rotzon, ki vam rotzah Hashem. So we find rotzon is very linked to the depth of the sacrifice. Now, let's go to the opposite, the kas, anger. Now, anger, where does anger express most on the body? In the face. Person is angered, you see it on the face. And where do you see it the most? The way that it's expressed in the language, in the Hebrew language, the af, the nose. We find always that the nose is an expression of anger. If someone could explain that to me, why is it in the nose more than in the eyes or the higher part of the head, I would be interested to know. But we find this, right? The pasuk says, "Hasanaf Hashem," God got anger with lashon af. Ashuv af achicha, until your brother's anger dissipates. Af, the nose. Arur apam, their anger should be cursed. Yaakov says about the Shimon Levi Shimon Levi's anger. We find this all over. So it's in the nose. It's af. A ritzur karbanos is also in the af. So in the opposite, if that's where the anger lives, so then in the opposite, the rotzon, the acceptance is also there in the nose. The pasuk says, "Yisimu katorah ba'pecha." The katorah, which is the spices that they brought in the Beis HaMikdash, you should put it ba'pecha, in your nose. In God's nose, kaviyachol. Hashem es reach hanichoach. Hashem smelled the reach hanichoach. He smelled it in the nose. But reach hanichoach artzei itchem. So says Rav David, these non-kosher birds that this bird is part of, right? They come from the Ruach HaTumah, the more evil sources, and they come against their opposites of that which is good. So we find over here that we're saying a tefillah of Kadosh Baruch Hu, accept our tefillos, accept the korbanos, the sacrifices, accept them, beratzon. You should go easy on us, quote unquote. It shouldn't be with anger, even if we're not necessarily deserving, but we're bringing a sacrifice, accept it. And that, the corresponding bird, is the bird which expresses temper. Expresses, as Chazal say, it's the anafa. The loshon is anafa because of the expression of af, that there's anger. Zu daya ragzanis, the one that is ill-tempered. Gets angry, machavroteh, even with its own, it gets angry. Exactly the opposite of the chasidah that we just mentioned. We jump to the next pasuk, the next blessing, and it's corresponding to the bird which is, from the evil forces, that it's the opposite of what we're looking for. And this is, again, it's one of those expressions of David's explaining that the bracha is supposed to bring tikkun to that element that God created in the world. The element of kas. And God should work with our prayer and our sacrifices biratzon. Now let's just take a look for a moment at the behavior of the Hiron. The Hiron, based on Rashi, the Radak Masudos, the observation shows that it's quick to anger, has aggressive behavior, it has territorial snapping, and it suddenly will come about with striking motions. It will be still and calm, and then suddenly violent. It has a sharp beak, which is also an expression of potentially, you could say, of not necessarily anger, but it shows aggressiveness, and is highly reactive within its own areas. It has low tolerance to others. It suddenly will lunge. It's found to be defensive, even if it's not provoked. So different expressions in its behavior, character that shows this idea that Chazal are saying that this oaf is ill-tempered. Okay, let's do one more bird for tonight. We're going to move on to the bracha of Modim. This is, wow, it's unbelievable the way that, according to what Rav David is saying, the idea of, it really touches the heart. I love the bracha of Modim, and let's see how the bird, which is the duchifas, right, that's the next one, says duchifas. Duchifas is the second to last bird, and it's the second to last blessing is Modim. What exactly is the correlation? So Rashi says from Chazal, the duchifas is hodo kafus. Its crest is doubled, folded and doubled. Okay, so on a more general way, before we get into anything specific, right away we see that a very clear connection between Modim, this bracha of Modim, thanking God, and this bird, because the whole idea of Modim, thanking God, is what do we do right when we begin? We bow down. It's a acceptance that everything we have, as we say in the whole bracha and the whole blessing, everything we've got is from you, God. Everything. You're giving us so many miracles. We don't have anything from ourselves. It's all because of you. Everything's a miracle. We can't, right? Our own energy is not able to accomplish. It's only because of you. Because you give to us. You're our tzor. You're our rock. You're our energy and our power and everything. Our bitachon. It's because of you. And we bow down to God. And that's this bird. It symbolizes that right there on the head. The feathers, the crest over there. Right? Chazal are saying, is doubled. And I'll just bring it out in the identification, the English identification. Which bird is this? It's identified as the Hoopoe. Now, observation, if you look at the Hoopoe, it's really cool. It has this fan-shaped crest, long feathers, like Chazal say. When it's relaxed, the crest lies flat on the head. It's almost not noticeable. But then, when it's alert or excited or feels threatened or something of that sort, all of a sudden, the fan appears to be wide, semicircle. And the idea of being folded when it's relaxed, which is actually the ideal. We're supposed to be relaxed. We're supposed to, right, in our lives, we get all taken up by, we need to work to protect ourselves and to get ourselves parnasah, food and money, and to defend ourselves from others. And it's all about me, which is important. All these things are important, but ultimately we have to understand, where's our energy? Our energy is from God, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that idea of the energy is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if one is uptight, then the crest opens. He's not able to see it. He's uptight, it's all within. He doesn't see it from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's from within himself, it's open. But when he bows himself down to God, he relaxes himself. It's at the time of relaxation. When he doesn't feel the pressure, he doesn't have that pressure. because God Baruch is taking care of me. Hashem will take care of me. Yeah, I need to do my part, but ultimately it's from God. So you see that right there in the duchifas, the Hoopoe. But let's take this a little step further and let's go over this idea within something which we find in the psukim in Eichav. Not in Eichav, in Eov, I'm sorry. Eov 39, Lamates. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Eov of all these different creations that he made in the world, and he's telling him, who made this? It's me. I take care of everything. So one of them over here is the Kenaf, it's Pasuk Yud Gimel 13. Kenaf rinanim ne'losa im evra chasidah v'noitza. I read the English. The wing of the, so here is translated as the ostrich, but Rav David's going to explain how, some of the commentaries see ostrich, but he wants to show that it's not the ostrich, it's actually this bird. It's the duchifas, it's the Hoopoe. So the wing of the Hoopoe is a delight. The stork with its pinion and feathers. Pasuk 14. She abandons her eggs on the ground and they are warmed in the dust. But she forgets that feet might crush her egg and the beast of the field might trample it, becoming hardened against her offspring, as if they were not hers. Her toil began in vain without fear. For God has denied her wisdom, and he did not apportion to her understanding. At the opportune time, she flies off on high. She laughs at the horse and his rider. Such an interesting creature. What is being described here, that the eggs, seems to be saying she abandons her eggs, which doesn't sound like she cares for them. Just on the ground, she knows that they're able to be trampled and they're available for anyone to take. It's not like on the top of the treetops, like the other birds, high places. And it's such a strange thing. How do we understand such a thing? Is that really what's happening? On top of that, Rav David Heller here points out that the Gemara in Bechoros seems to give us a different understanding of the same exact bird in this exact verse. And that is, the Gemara recounts an interesting story of a bar yuchni, a certain type of bird, v'tava shishim krachim, and it's exaggerating, but it's saying 60 villages, v'shabra shlosh me'os harazim, and it broke 300 cedar trees. How did it do that? Because it dropped its egg, and it fell on these different areas, on the villages, on the trees, and it broke it. Obviously an exaggeration, but you see the enormous size. The Gemara says, really? This bird, the bar yuchni bird, throws its eggs? And it quotes this pasuk, so according to this explanation of Rav David, this is going to be the bird of the hippo. So, does it do that? The pasuk seems to express that it's very delicate with its eggs. So Rashi explains that the Gemara here understands the word nel also is that it very calmly, delicately, it takes its egg and will bring it up and bring it down. It will not drop them. Exactly the opposite of what it seems from when you read the simple meaning of the psukim, that it abandons its eggs, doesn't care for them. The Gemara says, Ahu muzrasa havir. So Rashi says, the egg that the Bar Yuchni dropped in this Gemara, that egg wasn't able to produce a chick to fly. So it didn't care for it. So that's sad. But what you see in the Gemara is that this bird actually does care for the eggs. It's very delicate. So how do we understand the simple meaning with the Gemara? And altogether, what exactly is the meaning behind, the symbol behind this bird? So David says a very simple idea which really touches the heart and could change one's life. He says we look and we know the nature of man is that men want to set up. They want to set up their lives, work, make the money that they need in order to, we call it vacation, at the end of their life, last hopefully large portion of their life, they're able to retire and they'll have a good life, they'll relax, they'll have money for themselves, even accumulate enough for the savings for the children, and they'll feel very good and relaxed, bitachon in themselves. They have a trust there. They got the bank account, which is important. It's important to have the savings in the bank. The question is the perspective. Where are you? Are you coming from a perspective of bitachon in yourself, trust in your own money, in yourself, in your own abilities, or is it coming from God? And he writes that people often forget that it's really from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu really gives us everything. Whatever we're able to accomplish is really from God. And not only that, the idea that sometimes, exactly because man trusts in himself, that's where Kadosh Baruch Hu brings an opposite result. Right? So people will have tons and tons of money, big savings, and whatever happens, and the money is not available for the kids anymore. Something happens suddenly. And it doesn't have to happen. But the idea of, we have it in Mitzrayim, he brings, God put back on Egypt what they did to the Jewish people. What's the focus on Asher Zadu, what they specifically did? Right? Mida Keneged Mida. The idea is, Zadu is in their mind. It's not just Asher Zadu they did physically. In their mind. What is that? All the Itzah, all the thinking. They thought that they're able to do this and this and this. That's exactly what went back on them. So God, Kodesh Baruch Hu, has this way of doing things. The man is boteach in himself. He trusts in himself. That perspective, Kodesh Baruch Hu, that could be exactly the reason why eventually God will take the money away, will take his energy away, will take his power away, and whatever focus that he's dealing with. And he says that's supposed to be what we're looking at this bird. And this is what Kodesh Baruch Hu, God's telling Eov, who's going through this terrible suffering. How is that? Here it goes. So this bird, the pasuk. Let's go back on the pasuk. The pasuk says, "Kenaf renanim ne'alosa." So this bird, which we're going to call the Hoopoe. The wing of the Hoopoe is a delight. What is that expression? What's the symbol? It's a delight. As the Meforshim say in the commentaries say, you look at it and it's beauty. There's beauty, there's splendor. And that's the expression of everything's great, right? Happiness. I could be relaxed. I have everything I need because I have my power, I have my energy, I'm taken care of. I took care of myself. That's what that expresses. And where do you see this in its behavior? So the verses continue. Because all other birds are afraid. What are they afraid of? They have to be afraid because their eggs are on top of treetops. There's a huge fall if it falls over. Now, obviously, this is just in a symbol. They do it in a way which their eggs are not falling over, their nests are not falling over. But the symbol is that the idea is there's a big fall from on top to where the eggs are to the ground. This bird, right, it's potech. He says, I don't have to worry. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my eggs. I'm going to lay them on the ground. As the verse says, as we read, she abandons her eggs on the ground. She's not doing it because she's feeling like she's abandoning them. She's doing it because she thinks that that's the best way. I'm sure of myself. I can put my eggs on the ground and nothing's going to happen. They're not even able to fall anymore. So according to what she's thinking, everything's great in her life. But what happens? Exactly because she acted the way she acted with her eggs, she put them on the ground. What does the verse say? She forgets that the feet might crush her egg and the beast of the field might trample it. All other birds, yeah, they're up in the nest, but they're not able to be taken by the man. They're not able to be reached by animals. But this bird, its egg, is on the ground. They could be trampled. Exactly because of what she was trying to do to feel comfortable and sure of herself, this bird, that's exactly what brings the downfall. That's what brings the crushing of the eggs. It says, the verse, what does it end off with? Becoming hardened against her offspring as if they were not hers. Her toil began in vain without fear, for God has denied her wisdom, and he did not apportion to her understanding. She doesn't have that same understanding with other birds. Meaning, if man wants to be wise, trust in God, not in your own energy. Have the savings, yes. Go through the work. But the perspective is, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if a person trusts in himself, it's because of himself, that's what eventually can easily bring out the downfall. Now, before we go into find observation in this bird, current observation to this point, if this is correct or not, in what we see, at least, in what it does with its eggs, but we understand the connection here to the Modim as we began with. Right? This is what Modim is. Everything about Modim is about recognizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one in charge. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me everything that I need, and anything which I'm doing in this world to bring myself energy or to bring myself money or anything else, food, that's all because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the miracles, the daily miracles of being able to breathe and be able to live, and everything else that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us, that God gives us that we need for that specific time, place. And it's always so important to remember that. Kafuf Roshcha, v'tein todah. Bend your head to God, and that's what we do by the Modim, and give thanks. Lameitiv to the one who gives good to you. Ki tov shemo v'lo na lahodos. Because his name is good, and to him it is appropriate to thank. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem yasim ha'adam yiftacho. Only in Hashem man place his bitachon, his milishmo yodeh, ki hu tzor chayav. Kadosh Baruch Hu is the rock of his life. Umiskabo. So that's the beauty of the hippo bird. The hippo bird. Now, I looked to see if they actually do this with their eggs, because it sounds really interesting and a little strange. So, it's not completely off from what observation shows, and this is just you see that the pasuk is just giving a symbolization of what's happening. And that is like this. They nest in tree cavities, rock crevices, wall holes, old buildings. It's true, they don't nest like other birds. They go in these other places. Sometimes they're on the ground also, but not as often. But what we could say about all these places, it seems to be that they're often or just above human heights. So that means that humans are able to reach them. Animals are able to reach the nest. That part is true. So the pasuk is expressing is on the ground. It could just be symbolizing an expression of that they're in human reach. And they're susceptible to other forces that are able to latch on and take them. Now, why and the way that they're observed, to at least an idea of perhaps the reason why they do this, because they go in places where there's physically difficult access. So as much as they're going lower down, but they feel sure of themselves. This is actually observed. They feel sure of themselves because they're going in places where they think that no one's able to get to them. It's a hidden area. It's hard to get to. That's about it, as much as what I researched to see if the observation of these psukim. But the idea is there. The idea that they feel sure in themselves, and that's lacking a level of wisdom, at least in the symbolism of what we're trying to bring out tonight with the bracha of Modim. Okay, Be'ezer Hashem, everyone should have a wonderful week, and we will continue with the last bracha in next class, Sim Shalom, which, as a heads up, is going to correspond to the last of the birds, which is the Atalef. The Atalef, according to Rav Segal, is the bat. Now we mentioned earlier a different bird, which may have been the bat. So we will discuss this a little bit next time. And we will hopefully end off with some type of... maybe I'll try to summarize the different brachos with the birds over a few minutes. I'll just take a few moments next time to put it all together. Have a wonderful week, everyone.